Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last lecture for Philosophy 230. So I wanted to, in this short video, just talk a little bit about what are some of the main things that you're going to find in section 4 of Hume's An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. And basically, all I need you to look for is one main distinction and three main claims and the arguments to support them. So first, the main distinction you're going to look for, and this happens right away in the very first paragraph, is the difference between what Hume calls relations of ideas as opposed to what he calls matters of fact. And as you'll see soon when you get to the readings, relations of ideas are basically a priori claims, the kinds of claims that Hume thinks are a priori, whereas matters of fact are the kinds of claims that Hume thinks are a posteriori. So we're focusing on human knowledge, and we're thinking along with Hume that some of our human knowledge is a priori knowledge that can be only justified by using only the intellect, and some of our knowledge is a posteriori, where we actually need experience to justify it. And so here, the main example of a priori knowledge that Hume is going to talk about is mathematics and pure logic. Whereas on the other side, the main example of matters of fact type knowledge is going to be scientific knowledge, or even everyday knowledge, such as knowing that it's sunny outside. Okay, so look for that distinction and look for what the main difference is, according to Hume, between relations of ideas and matters of fact. Now, once you get past that, then what you're going to see Hume doing is focusing a lot on matters of fact. And there's an important reason why. For Hume, relations of ideas are things that we can prove a priori by just using good deductive arguments that we can frame intellectually from axioms in mathematics or pure logic. So there's not much to worry about there concerning whether there's a limit to what we can know, because we just have to check each other's work to make sure that the proofs that we provide are solid, that they contain no logical mistakes. However, on the other side of things, when it comes to thinking about matters of fact, there are a lot of really interesting things to think about here, because it turns out that although the kinds of matters of fact that we might be talking about might be quite different, for instance, I could think of a matter of fact that just says it is sunny outside right now, or a matter of fact that is some scientific proposition, such as, water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. Even though we can be talking about very different kinds of matters of fact, there's going to be a pattern in the reasoning that supports the truth of matters of fact. So what we're going to see Hume do is that Hume is going to focus on what he calls reasoning concerning matters of fact. And this reasoning concerning matters of fact is just any time we're using some matters of fact to justify others' matters of fact. And what we're going to see is that Hume is going to support three main claims, and he's going to do it by providing little arguments to back up each claim, and those arguments are the ones you have to pay really careful attention to. But the main three claims that you want to look for in section 4 are, first, that all reasoning concerning matters of fact is based on the relation of cause and effect. And this is a really important finding. Okay? And the reason why this is a really important finding is because, again, it releases us from the concern of trying to think about what kind of matters of fact we're talking about. And what it tells us is that it doesn't matter what kinds of matters of fact we're talking about. It doesn't matter what the matters of fact refer to. For instance, it could be a scientific claim, or it could be a claim about common sense knowledge, or a claim about knowledge in economics or in business or whatever. If it's knowledge that's verified by experience, and it's something that we infer beyond what we're currently witnessing or remembering, then it must be that somewhere in our reasoning we're using the relationship of cause and effect. And the reason why that's so critically important is because now we can focus our attention on whether the relationship of cause and effect is a reliable and sure way to justify knowledge. That's one way of saying it. And so the second important finding that Hume makes is that all our knowledge about causes is a posteriori. So all our knowledge about causes and effects, or causal relations, is a posteriori. It is never a priori. So for Hume, there is nothing we can know at all about causes and effects if all we do is sit around and think about things. We need evidence from experience to try to learn which events are causally connected to which other events. And so as we reflect on that and think more about that, and Hume's going to give you some famous examples to talk about that, what we notice is that all our knowledge from experience is always probable knowledge. All our knowledge from experience is always probable knowledge. And this turns out to be a hugely important claim in Hume's philosophy that has to do with our inability ever to know what links or cements a cause to its effect. And so make sure that when you read section 4, you watch out for each one of these three important points: that all reasoning concerning matters of fact is based on the relation of cause and effect, that all our knowledge of causes and effects is a posteriori, it is never a priori, and that all our knowledge from experience is always probable knowledge. And if you focus on the arguments that support those claims, then you'll gain a really deep understanding of what Hume's philosophy is all about. Have a great afternoon.